Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to the GrowthX Masterclass. Thanks a lot, folks, for joining in on a Saturday afternoon. Are you guys able to hear my voice? Is everything working perfectly fine? Not sure. Just checking up. Yep, awesome, perfect. Thank you so much on Saturday joining in, and I think I'm sure you had more fun things to do on Saturday. So appreciate you spending the next 45 minutes with me. We'll get started. I think we're going to look at a few of the interesting stuff on content as a lever about growth. So we're going to focus our conversation today on more on the content side and how do you scale content. Before that, I'm going to do a quick shameless plug about GrowthX. At GrowthX, we are building a breed of top growth operators and founders who are coming to accelerate their companies and their careers. And typically, GrowthX is an interesting combination of the top founders in India and top growth product people and people who are into marketing, so people who understand single channel marketing. And we see companies joining in, 100 companies join every 2 months. We have 500 plus companies now, from seed stage to public companies. And we have seen some interesting amount of diversity coming into the cohort. So you do want to check out what GrowthX is. Yash will drop a note on how you can know more about GrowthX. But I have an interesting construct for next 45 minutes. We are actually going to use the content as a loop inside the session itself. So the concept I'm going to explain to you, we're going to have a live of that concept right here. The first is, if you want to know about GrowthX is 5 weeks of live sessions. We typically get a bunch of interesting founders. There's also 3-week capstone project that typically GrowthXers do, and you should definitely speak to people who have done GrowthX. And it's an interesting community of people. It's a tribe of people who you can soundboard with if you're trying to become better at solving for growth. What we're going to do in today's session, and the gamification I was talking about, is in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to explain just one concept about how do you scale content, right? If you write your core takeaway from the next 40 minutes on Twitter or LinkedIn and tag GrowthX Club and use hashtag GrowthX you stand a chance to get up to 50% scholarship if you apply to GrowthX and if you get in. So there's also an application process to get in. Yash will drop the note, right? Let's get started. A lot of plugs, I think. My first question for everyone, right? What are the most weird passwords that you have used so far? Go to the chat and put it down. I'm gonna try and read. What are the ways you folks are designing your passwords? Oh my goodness! The first answer is password itself. Interesting, very interesting. Go in the chat. Put down most weird passwords that you've used so far. Interesting. Nishi loves, I think, 3 Idiots. I think that's why her password is all as well. Okay. Interesting. Spider-Man is the best. My God, yes. Crazy. These are some crazy passwords, right? The point I'm trying to make is I'm gonna walk you through a story, right? You mentioned about a bunch of passwords the most weird password that you used so far, right? I hope they are not your current passwords. But can anybody guess, without doing a Google search, by the way, how many number of people follow passwords as a topic on Quora? Can anybody take a random guess? Go in the chat, put your guess bets there. How many people follow passwords globally as a topic on Quora? 100. No, Shrestha, 100 is, I think, way low than our estimate. Dipanita is saying 100,000. Okay. Runjun is saying 56,000. Nimi is again saying 100,000. Okay, Divyam said 1 million. Okay. Anybody else wants to put a bet? 2 million. Interesting. Okay, 500,000. Okay, interesting. The number is 1 million plus, right? The exact number is 1.1 million on Quora, on the amount of people that are following passwords as a topic. And if you look at the subtopics here, which are also related to, what password management, forgetting password, keeping password, it's about how do you log in and how do you keep the passwords in Chrome and all of that, right? Now, in a parallel universe, if you were a Dashlane, so Dashlane essentially is a place where you can save all of your passwords and you just have to remember one password and it will autofill all the passwords across the board, not just browsers, but across the boards, right? Now, if if you were working on content at Dashlane and you knew this insight, which is Quora has a 1 million plus people following passwords as a topic. These are the potential customers they can possibly get for your own brand, right? So Quora and Dashlane has a overlap there, which is password as a topic. So if I were you, I would focus on trying to get content designed specifically for people who are solving for that. So becoming the first, like the top writer. And if you go to Quora right now, you'll soon realize that if you write a lot of questions for a specific topic, you'll start becoming the top writer for that particular topic, right? I'll give you another example. If you go to Quora right now and say credit cards, right? You will see a bunch of interesting writers who are financial writers writing about credit cards in general, right? And that's insane. So these are the white spaces on how you can figure out. And this I gave example of Quora, right? You can also take the same example for specific platform. It could be, I don't know, it could be GIFs on how you create that content. It could, of course, be Reels, and you can figure out multiple these white spaces and build for those topics, right? But how do you prioritize, right? There's so much to build for different platforms, right? So if we take that same example from Quora, and if we say that, okay, how do you prioritize which content to be built, should be built, right? If you go to Quora and if you start looking at, okay, how many views typically which kind of themes get, right? And there could be multiple themes. I've listed 4 examples here, which is maybe a password setting, maybe a password management, maybe it's security, it's maybe just forgot password, right? Also try to understand how much effort is required to actually start producing consistent content for that topic. And also start looking at, okay, what's the lead time? You start writing content, how long is it going to take to actually start getting results out of it? And let's say you start, like, let's say you're Dashlane, let's carry the same example, you're Dashlane and you're essentially creating content around forgetting passwords. How many customers will you get reach to, right? And what are your probable funnel rates are going to look like? So let's say 1 million people are following the topic. Let's say you reach half of them. Let's say you reach 500,000. How many of them are actually going to click on any links that you actually have for, let's say, your product plugins, right? How many people are going to click on that? How many are going to become a real customer? You do all of this before you start putting in heavy efforts on creating content in general, not just Quora, right? Now, how do you scale this content then, right? Like, I think a bunch of you must be writing content for your marketing copy, your product copy, your strategy copy. I don't know if any people who write pitch decks have joined in, but how do you scale content across growing your product? Like, how do you do that? That's where we get to the idea of content loops, right? And what are the content loops? Can anybody help me out? How does Quora ranks for almost any freaking question that's asked on Google search? Has anybody any guess how Quora does rank on the first 3 results when you ask, let's say, I don't know, like, what's the best pub in Indiranagar, Bangalore? Any question? Anyone wants to take a guess? How does Quora does that? Okay, keyword volumes. But like, how do Quora ranks among the first? Everyone's writing content. Why does Quora ranks higher in Google search? Anybody? Not sure if anybody who does SEO joined in. Because of the community, Surendra is saying, okay, solve potential problems, okay. Long tail, very interesting, Prashant. Okay, higher upwards. Upwards is a currency inside Quora. It's not really a Google search currency, right? So it doesn't matter on Google search ranking. Interesting. Srinidhi, I think, have got the gist of it, right? Which is common people contributing to Quora, right? So let's look at Quora as a. Thank you so much, everyone who has answered in the comments. If you look at Quora, right? Let's say I come to Bangalore for the first time and I say, what's the best place to live in Bangalore, right? And I go on Google search. The first result that I see is from Quora. It says, okay, now this is debatable, that Indiranagar is the best place to live in Bangalore, right? And once I start reading that answer, I start using Quora in general. I start understanding various questions that are being asked on that platform and also the answers that are being written. At one point, I go from the journey of solving for one answer to becoming a reader to becoming a writer on Quora, because that's what Quora pushes you, right? Quora essentially push you to write content on Quora, and it gives you recommended question you can write answers about. Once you become a writer on Quora, Quora indexes all of that content being written on the SEO side. And this is a complete loop where you have readers coming onto the platform. They came for a single topic, but they becoming a Quora reader, and then they became a Quora writer, right? This essentially creates the supply and demand for content. So you go on Google search, you type any question, that user probably going to become an author or a writer on Quora down the line, right? This is the core content loop. Very few brands typically use, right? So my core is get your own users. So if you have a B2B place, get your users to write content for you. If you're a consumer product, get your users to at least distribute your content, right? I think these are the two major things that you should definitely do. That's all, folks. That's all from a content side on this masterclass. We looked at two broad things. One is how do you create content? How do you figure out prioritization on content? The second is, however, how you use your own customers, how you use your own users to create content, and you just index it, or you help that content to be distributed. And that's how you create a demand and supply side content for your own brands. We'll take any questions that the audience has. Put down your questions in the Q&A section and we'll pick it up from there. Let me just stop the presentation. Awesome. So we'll use the rest of the 30 minutes just understanding questions. Yes, you want to come on the co-host? Maybe come on the main stage and help me read out the question.
Hey.
Awesome. Let's take questions. Are there questions on the chat?
People, please feel free to drop questions for Abhishek. And here's the thing: people who Abhishek picks can win Amazon vouchers, Linktree Pro subscriptions, Ticker Tape Pro subscriptions. We've got a lot of gifts and hoodies for people who ask questions. So don't hold back. Ask right away.
Very interesting. You have to incentivize people for asking questions. That's the first.
Definitely.
At GrowthX, I think I have to incentivize people to not ask questions. I think that's how the audience works out. Very interesting. Okay, cool. I think we have few. Yes, you wanna just quickly read out questions? You can sequence it, pick whatever you think can help.
Yeah. There's one person asking, how do you get to your first 10K customers using content strategy? Keshav is asking.
So Keshav, I think the first step to getting using content to get the first 10,000 customers, right? Now let's remove the 10,000 customers barrier. Let's think about how do you get the first 1,000 customers, right? The way you think about the first 1,000 customers is if you're a consumer product, you figure out what are the amount of people in your own network that they can be potential users, right? That's the first step to getting to the first 100 customers, right? I actually did a vlog sometime back on YouTube, on the GrowthX YouTube channel on how do you get to the first 1,000 customers. Definitely check it out. But I think the way you think about content for first 100,000 or 10,000 is, first, the reason why people come to your product, that value prop has to be communicated, and that value prop has to be satisfied, right? So if you're selling ice cream, somebody coming and eating that ice cream should have an aha moment with the ice cream that you're selling. And if that doesn't happen, any kind of strategy won't work. So once this happens, once a user hits an aha moment, the next step is essentially allowing that user to either create content on your platform. Let's take an example. Let's take Instagram, right? The user hits an aha moment on their own post and they invite other people to come on Instagram. So here the channel is the user itself. But on the Quora example, however, the users are creating content, but you are distributing the content. So the two ways you can look at for the first 10,000 customers. Firstly, make sure your product has a product market fit and people are really experiencing the aha moment with your product. The second, however, is slightly different, which is either you distribute the content or you help people distribute the content, right? And that's how you could think about the first 10,000. I don't think you should take any numbers on these, right? I think it should be a flow built into your product. I think that's the perfect way you could think about this. I can take another example, right? So if you let's say you are a customer of Swiggy and Swiggy wants to use content loops that we spoke about. The first thing that they need to do is anybody who essentially gets an order within 30 minutes and rates a 5-star experience, that's the aha customer, right? So they might want to, like, I don't know, like launch food stories on Instagram and like a simple extension where the dish actually converts to an Instagram story that they can share with some interesting, cool formats, right? I think that's the way you could potentially run a content loop for that kind of customer. Hope that answered whoever asked this question. Yes.
Abhishek, I also see. Should we take another question, or do you want to present your screen?
No, we can just take questions.
All right. I see a lot of questions related to niche, like how to find the niche in content, like how to grow in the niche. A lot of questions are related to that in the chat.
Interesting. So how do you figure out like which niche you go for, right? And I think this has been very, very debated topic, which is like everyone wants to find a niche, right? I think I also have this contrary view that hack or a growth hack is very short term, right? You need a process where consistently get incremental audience or incremental attention from the same audience, either of them, right? Don't try to figure out what the niche is. Try to figure out your consistency about a specific audience persona. So figure out what your ideal customer look like. Figure out where do they spend time and money, and figure out of, let's say Yash is a customer of Swiggy, right? Where does Yash spends most of his time? Maybe writing content at Pepper, or maybe figuring out social media for Pepper. So to figure out social media for Pepper, he must be using, let's say, Instagram, the likes of the copycats of the whole TikTok journey. He might be also following YouTube, right? That's where Yash spends most of his time. But hey, does Yash spend time on LinkedIn to just scroll? No, he might be looking at a side gig on LinkedIn. You never know, right? So you figure out which channels your customers are spending time and money on. Then you figure out where they're captive for your kind of product. You can't pitch, I don't know, like a Tinder-like product on LinkedIn. That's not going to work, right? You need to also figure out your product channel fit, which is if you're selling something which is fashion, maybe LinkedIn is not a channel, because that the conversation there is not fashion. The conversation there is hiring, right? So figure this one out, right? Figure out which channel your customers spend and time. Don't try to go for these hacks and all of that people talk about. I think that's just overly done, and it doesn't work on a long-term strategy, right? Give me one example where niche has been a big thing on like consistently over the years. There's nothing like niche. Maybe topic, the umbrella thought that you crack can be the niche, but it's never about the channels, about niche. I hope that answers the question. I think there's a bunch of questions that have come in.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. I don't think you need to now do the Amazon vouchers.
No, we are pretty serious about that. At the end of the event, so like in the next week, we'll announce all the winners who will be getting all these goodies and hampers.
Very interesting.
I'm gonna plug in the partner Tickertape for doing this. Linktree Tickertape. They've been good partners and good friends for us for doing this.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I just lost one question due to so much.
Maybe pick one, whichever you feel like could add value to almost everyone on the call.
Yeah. How to finally convert the lead after engaging them with content is a question here by Hina.
It's a very broad question, and like I think a bunch of you must be struggling with getting a ton of volume through SEO and then not converting that used like viewer on the page, right? Or as Yash likes to call it, I'm not getting a lead for Pepper out of this. This visitor is not becoming an MQL, marketing qualified lead for me, right? And the way you think about this is, okay, let me take a different example. Let's take you're building out a SIP calculator, okay? Now you created a simple product saying, I will help you calculate your gains of your SIP. Come on my website. So anybody typing on Google search, calculate my SIP returns or SIP calculator lands on this page. Now this user came from an intent to understand if I do 5,000 rupees SIP a month, how much corpus I will have, let's say at 10 years down the line, right? That's what the intent of the user was. So when you create content, you're creating content for sufficing an intent, correct? Or an interest, either of it, right? In this Google search case, it's intent. Once they land on your page, the only thing they want in life is the SIP calculator. But I'll give you an interesting example. I'm not sure if somebody from Grow is here. If you go to Google right now and type SIP calculator, Grow comes in the first 3 results. If you click on that, you essentially get an SIP calculator, but it also tells you at the end, says that, oh, by the way, you can, like, if you type 5,000 there, it shows you a calculator which 5,000, the whole portfolio that you can select in SIP. So when you create content and you give value to people, the plugin of the product has to be related to the content. And that's the core why you get random traffic on your website and that never converts, because their context and the intent that they came with is absolutely different than why they have come and what your product is, right? So you need to figure out what kind of content are you creating, what value is it adding to people who are searching or have interest to, and third, how does that content really translate to your product offering? Like Grow will never go and say that, oh, I'm going to do topics on, let's say, dating, how to date people, right? Because that's not the core content. That's the content that Tinder might do, right? So I think that's the way you think about conversion. Of course, there's a lot more parameters apart from just like being relevant to what the content is. It's also about trust. Can you really build trust with the user when you're trying to get the lead, you're trying to convert them into a paid customer? And like think through the first time you invested. I think most of who is on this call have invested in an equity or at least an SIP, somewhere investment, at least crypto, right? You never invested like 5 lakh rupees in one go, right? You invested, I don't know, like 5,000 rupees or 500 rupees when you started investing in that platform, right? So trust is also one of the key parameters why you should think through, essentially, like why will people buy from you? And also, if you are selling high value items or your subscription pricings are way higher, it also depends on how many touch points do they need to actually convert from a content piece to becoming like a paid conversion user. Sorry about the long answer, but I think a lot more parameters involved on why content-led the user will convert.
Thanks for the answer, Abhishek. A really good question, something that I relate to and I've struggled with it in the beginning of my career. What metric should be used to measure if a community is growing with the right audience and not just traffic? So how do we
it's a very community question, not really sure how is it really.
Don't know if they're gonna convert, like where is this heading in the right way or not.
Correct. Correct. Let's take another example, right? First fact, right? Any audience, or when you said community, right? Yes, you don't build community on Instagram. So let's park it right there, right? You built a followership, people who showed interest in your brand once, and you wanted to like know more about them and what they're posting. You don't own that audience. I think that's done and dusted now. Everyone knows that, right? You only own the audience who have come to your product. That's your audience, right? So when you see communities and people who have following, the question is, how do you get followers to convert? Is the question, or a slightly different question, Yash?
Yeah, it's like, how do you know that it's not just traffic coming in? Basically, how do you convert them? How do you actually create a community and not just an audience?
I think few of the folks have really cracked it. I think you should definitely check out. Tanmay has cracked it really well with followers getting converted into community on Discord. If you go to the community, Tanmay's community on Discord, you'll soon realize that these people spend hours and hours on, like, the power users are spending time there, right? And the core value prop is essentially, I don't know, like it could be crypto, it could be investing, it could be, I don't know, just bot arming, right? But the core value prop is still getting discussed within those users. I think the way you should measure this is amount of people who actually follow you. How many people do I take a dating example, right? Like you get into a bar, you see a beautiful person and you are approaching them, right? Does that translate to a second date, right? I think that's the first step, right? You don't go to them and say that, oh, by the way, like saying and going to a new user who's just followed your Instagram handle and saying that buy this 50,000 product is like going to a bar and talking to a beautiful person who you don't know and saying, let's have kids together. That's how they feel like, right? So I think you should always look at what's the next step, right? Like what's the next step? Like if it's first is like Instagram followers, the next step could be a Slack group or a Discord community, or I don't know, like some other platform where you actually ask them for an email. The next step is measuring, okay, out of those email, how many people are really, I don't know what's your frequency, but are they logging in daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? What's the time duration? The last is, of those people, how many people are contributing to the community? So if you have people who want to, let's say, I don't know, like if you're an education product and if your people want to learn something, how many people are helping other people, right? I think that's the way you measure it, but there is no silver bullet to measuring social following impact on business metric. I think it's too far. One interesting way could be how many of your users talk about you on social media about a specific feature. They just don't talk about, let's say, if Pepper wants to do a wall of love on the website, it's not just I love Pepper content. I'm like, why? Like, why are you like, what are you so, bragging about? Like, talk about that. So do they talk about specific features on social? If you look at Dunzo, where I worked previously, right? The users don't like, they essentially are like a tribe, right? Wherein people who use Dunzo for specific purpose, they absolutely love the product and they talk specifically why they love the product on social media. So I think that's another way you could measure it. But I think it could be a different masterclass on how do you measure like brand and social and all of that.
Got it.
Hope I think it gave a frame of reference. I'm not sure I answered the question because it's really hard to answer how you do that. But I think you should look at, can you get your users to move to the next funnel, which is asking more and more time or details from them.
All right, let's look at some more questions.
I think there are a bunch of questions. I've lost track of what's answered and what's not.
How do you go about understanding the demographic, their needs, and creating a user persona?
Very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to take the last keyword that you said, which is the user persona. How do you identify who is the right ideal customer profile for you, right? How do you identify who's the right ideal customer? First, the first behavior is this user has a core use case, right? So core use case for, let's say, Uber is not Uber. The core use case is going from point A to point B for commute to office or home, right? I think that's the core use case. So then the next sidelining product is Uber. But the way you will, like, if Yash is an ideal customer for Uber, how would I look at user persona for Yash? The first thing that I look at is what's his demography, right? The age, gender, all of that, right? The second I look at is, okay, what are his interest levels, right? What kind of stuff that he follows on social media? And all of this data will come from a lot more sources, including user calling. And of course, doing focus group study about your own your potential customers. The third thing that so first is demography. Second is what are your interests. Third is understanding where do you spend your time and money. I think I touched upon it, right? And when I say time and money, I talk about, does he spend time on Instagram, but spends money on, I don't know, Facebook ads, right? So it changes, right? So I'll try to understand that. Or does he clicks more on YouTube ads than on Instagram stories, right? And then the last component, which most of the people miss, is understand where this user really pays for things, right? For example, if you're selling, I don't know, Pepper has a product called Pepper Type, right? Which is a similar product to product on UI-based GPT-3 copywriting solutions like Copy.ai, and there are a bunch of them coming up now, right? Now, if you really are using that service, and if I'm launching a service which is based on some, let's say I'm MailChimp, right? Somebody has bought from MailChimp, they will have higher chances to buy from Pepper Type, right? So of your target customers, what other subscriptions or what other paid services or products that they have bought or subscribed to? I think that's also one of the signal how you understand user personas. That's the reason, right? If you are let's say at Cred, right? If you're trying to acquire users who have credit cards, right? We'll never go for somebody who don't have a credit card, right? So if your product requires a user to have a certain appetite to pay or a willingness to pay, only then you will go for that user. So you'll look at that from maybe salary level data. You look at, I don't know, like financial data and a lot more signals. It completely depends also on your domain. If you're in a B2B setting, you're a consumer setting, you're a consumer SaaS, you're in fintech, you're in education. It completely depends on the domains, on what are the small levers that will keep changing for the personas. But these are the broad levers: age, gender, location, where do you spend time and money, where do you spend most of your money, and where are you captive, all of that.
Thanks, Abhishek. I have an interesting question here, but it is slightly not related to content, but more on performance marketing.
Oh my God. No. Let's not take performance. This is too far away from the topic that we're discussing.
All right. Let's pick something else. how different is branding content from conversion content?
Interesting.
I think this person is trying to ask branded content versus normal content, I guess.
Or is it branding versus, I don't know, like maybe let's take the question, which is branding content versus normal content, like the content that you do for positioning versus content that you do for maybe, I don't know, reach, right? So
Yeah.
I think everyone understands, and you should Google this, right? This is basic marketing gyan, which is hub, hero, hygiene model on content, right? Hub is essentially something that you'll do episodic. Hygiene is something that you'll do, like let's say you are MKBHD, you will do hygiene content saying, okay, how do you root an iPhone? I don't know, like he must have been doing that in 2016 17. But hero content are typically, let's say, how Pepper is doing this event, essentially getting a lot of trust from the ecosystem, interesting set of people who have built trust and following over the years, and getting them to create content for them. That's a branded content, right? Now this whole session will go as a recorded content on Pepper, right? And that's a hero content, because you have 50 to 60 people who have very different sets of micro audiences, right? Which are very interesting following, and that Pepper can get advantage from, right? So I think that's how you should think about branded. Branded content has to be for positioning. It can never be for just reach. Reach is a byproduct, but branded content is typically for like getting, like if I'm I don't know, if I'm like, let's say like a fintech company, my positioning play will be getting Raghuram Rajan and speaking to somebody at that organization, right? That's a positioning play. It might not give you reach, but it'll give you insane positioning.
Got it. So one question Janisha is asking here is that it's slightly easier for brands that have a large following to grow, but what if the brand is just starting out in the market? So what are some great growth marketing tactics to use for brands that are just starting out?
Got it. I think, Janisha, great question. How do you look at, let's say you have 100 followers on, like, I don't know, social media. How do you go from there? Out of 100 followers, how many followers really have really hit an aha moment with your own brand, right? How many people react with that content? How many people really share that content, right? So we looked at Quora's content loop, right? For you, if you are on Instagram Reels, your content loop is how many people actually share this reel with somebody else? Are people sharing enough reels about whatever you're producing as a content? I think that's the holy grail, referral or even content loop, whatever you want to call it, right? That's the holy grail to actually grow that whole, like the pie of the number of people that are following. I think that's the way you should think about this.
And then there's one question related to blogs. So how do you strategize content specifically for blogs and growth via blogs? And is it even relevant in today's times where everything is going video first?
I think I'll give you a few frame of reference and rabbit holes for you to explore. Definitely try and understand how HubSpot really had the whole inbound strategy on blogs and why it works at scale. It was a blog strategy for consumer, which were actually targeted towards enterprises, right, or businesses. So how do you think through? Maybe go to that rabbit hole, try and understand how HubSpot does it. Maybe there are a few answers there. Also, when you're thinking about blogs, think like, do your target potential customers spend time reading blogs? I think that's the first step. Or do they go to Google search for searching for a topic? If yes, okay, cool. How many people actually search? Get a few data points from, I don't know, there are a bunch of tools like SEMrush and hundreds of them to actually get data points on how many people search for that topic. After you get that, what's the competition landscape look like? Is it too high? Is it low? Is it medium? Okay, if you start producing content today, what's your lead time, probable lead time? Maybe run a Google search ad for that content and like put it up and see how many people actually click on that content piece, right? Maybe that's another way you can do a quick litmus test to understand if it will work before spending, let's say, a year into building that whole content piece. Also look at interesting brands, right? Look at, of course, HubSpot is a great example. You could also think through a lot of fintech brands like Grow, right? Like Grow's whole growth has come from a bunch of SEO and blogs and calculators and stuff like that. Maybe like maybe go and put some effort into researching on what's working for them, why it's working for them, how long has it taken for them to actually figure this out. I think there are a few answers there. I'm not going to give you a cookbook to just copy. I'm going to also give you some homework to go back to.
Awesome. Next up, we have a fairly common question, but like nobody has the actual right answer for it. So make good content or make content that can be consumed by the masses. Which road to take?
So this is like, is Mona Lisa picture an art or a science? Right? That's how the question is, right? Now, if you say if it's art, okay, there is better art that Picasso can have or have done, right?
Mona Lisa painting, or Majnu Bhai's painting also.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
That can be also considered as an art now.
Sure, that can be considered by art, but very few people. I think the reach would be very limited. I think limited to just Majnu Bhai, right? So, but I think the way you should think about this is you don't do something which doesn't give value to the customer, right? I think that's how you should think about it. So are you asking me the question saying, hey, should I just create content for masses? Hell yes, if it's going to give you the exact same output on your whatever growth. Everyone here is creating content for some growth, I'm assuming, right? Nobody is doing content here for fun. But of course, fun is a thing that you have during creating content and distributing content, but that's not the outcome that you're going for, right? The outcome that you're going for is get some numbers out of it. So if masses are helping you achieve that, go ahead, do it. Now, there's only a slight nuance to what I just advised, right? If creating content for masses gives you numbers, but screws up your positioning, then you have a problem, right? I think that's the only nuance out there, right? If it doesn't solve for your positioning of your brand in the whole landscape, then you should be aware of what kind of content you create for masses, or should you create content for masses. Also, what kind of space do you operate in? Do you operate in like K-12 education? Do you operate in like teenager neobanking like FamPay? You have to do massing content, right? You can't just say that I'll do just intellectual content or just like cool content, which like only 10,000 people want to do it. What percentage of your total market also want to consume this kind of content, right? I think that's also super important before you start defining the umbrella thought on what content has to be built. Hope that answered the question.
Next, we have an interesting question that says, how do you do growth marketing for sensitive industries like healthcare? But we can generalize this, not only healthcare, like some other B2B industries as well, where, just plain like posting memes and growing by memes is impossible. So how do you do growth marketing for such industries where the audience is not, not just teens and easy to please?
So let's say you are selling, Amex to 40-plus-year-olds in India, right? And if you're selling Amex, if you look at Amex's audience, of course it's niche, and I'm not like, your question is not niche one, your question is just generic one, right? But the way you should think about this is the perceived value of money, time, output is different for different age buckets. So for somebody, as you said, right, like the time to please or the amount of stuff required for a teenager to get pleased is give 100 rupees Amazon voucher, I don't know, 500 rupees Paytm wallet, right? But for like somebody like me, who's a 30-year-old now, 100 rupees doesn't excite, right? If you tell me that I'll get an international trip to go to somewhere, I think that's my higher perceived value, right? Now, you think about the same thing to your own customers, right? How do you think about growth for them is what kind of stuff that has higher perceived value for them? And the second component, once you have created that perceived value, is how do you create urgency for that audience? Like, how do you really figure out why should they buy from you right now, right? And there are few things apart from just doing discounting, but also creating, FOMO on how you think through this, right? I think that's the way you should think about it. But like, it's a very broad question. How do you do growth marketing for products which are B2B? That could be like series of sessions on how you do that. I think that's what we do at GrowthX, which is an 8-long week sprint. I think there is a question from Arshak, which is, what type of content should we use in B2B edtech firm? Arshak, it depends very much depending on what your product is, right? It completely, I think the frame of reference is, does it add value? Will that content be shareable? And third is, once somebody consumes that content, how is it relevant to your product, right? And is it going to give you anything, or it's just going to engage and the user is going to lose interest after that? I think you should think through that. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yes, you can pick it. I just saw that question, so I picked it.
There's Karthik asking, product versus content-led growth, which do you prioritize?
Product is going to help you distribute content in a long way. I took that Instagram stories example wherein you essentially, I don't know, like click some, it's the Swiggy Instagram stories example, right? Where you consumed the Swiggy order and you loved it, right? And the next thing that you see is you can create like an interesting loop on top of Swiggy share to Instagram stories, create cool formats. So its product is enabling content to be distributed, right? SEO is also, product is enabling you to distribute and index content across the board on Google search in the Quora case, right? So I don't think it's about prioritizing one over the other. I think they both go hand in hand.
Another question by Karthik, how do you measure your content ROI? Again, a broad question.
Very broad question.
Metrics here, but
yeah.
Like, what should one focus on while creating content and then measuring it?
I think when you think about measuring content, right, you should also be very aware that content in general is a very long-term game, right? It's not a very short-term game. It will definitely give you few milestones in that journey, but it will never give you like okay, you launched a content piece and boom, your website traffic is 100,000 next day, right? Incremental. I don't think that's going to happen, right? The way you should measure about content is look at the potential users. Are they bringing more users through your content? I think that's a great signal to look at. If Yash is an ideal customer and if he consumes the content, is he sharing that content to a similar ideal customer for a specific use case? If that happens, then you are going to have more like better ROI metrics in general on the content. Don't create content which your product is not at all related to. It can be early, like if you're a bank for, I don't know, like a 25 to 35, definitely create content for teenagers on 14 to 25, because down the line they're going to become customers. But don't create content for somebody who's 60-year-old who's never going to use your bank, right? So think through, like, is the potential user progression going to happen throughout the journey, or it's going to never happen, or is it even related? That these are the frame of reference if you think through.
We have a question from Naveen. He's asking, how do you stand out from the crowd in today's content creator economy, where everybody is creating content? There's a content boom since the last 1-2 years, and this is one question that I have to ask, Abhishek. Do you think there is saturation in the content market or no? And if there is saturation, how can one stand out from it? That's my question as well.
So when we say that there is a saturation on content, I think, Yash, which city are you right now in? I'm
right now in Bombay.
You're in Bombay, right? So I'm based out of Bangalore. I think we live in our own echo chambers on saying content is saturated, right? Like you go to a cigarette shop on the corner in Mumbai, in nearby your office. Go talk to that person and ask him how many hours do you spend on Instagram stories, or like the likes of TikTok. I think we are very privileged, right? And like if you take the overall volume of these kind of people who think content is saturated, is less than 1 million in India, and we are 135 crore. If you're just creating India content, global to matlab is very different. But I don't think we're even near to like content. I think we are very much like closer to the problem. That's why we feel that, but I don't think that exists. That's my that's my general recommendation on, you should not think about ceiling to consumption, because it's like insane amount of people consuming content at rapid speeds because of the data revolution that happened, right? Coming to the question, which is how do you, like, there's so much being done, why is everyone growing then? Like if there is so many people who are creating content, why is everyone growing? It's not about, people are not gonna follow one person. If you're a creator and creating your own brand, right? People are not gonna follow just one person. People are gonna follow 500 people and then make an opinion about that space, right? So it's never going to be one person taking it all. It's going to be decentralized. So the more you consume and you can add value to each piece that you create, or I don't know which kind of value. It could be fun, it could be, I don't know, knowledge, it could be, I don't know, entertainment, whatever it is. Until you do that, you will definitely keep on growing in your own following or your own community. I think you should not worry about what other people are doing it. Definitely understand the trends and understand the user psychology that's in the market on the channels. Let's say you're on Instagram stories, what kind of trends are happening. But just that, right? You don't think through, okay, will I get traffic, right? I think that's question is moot, because this number of users, if you look at, like, take any example of any platform and look at their last year's growth in India, it's massive, right? And the average time spent on these platforms are going through the roof. So I don't think there is any ceiling on these platforms.
Right. Next up,
the only ceiling is when people are going to sleep. That's the only ceiling, because that they are not consuming yet when they are sleeping content.
You never know. 20 years down the line, there's some AI which helps you consume content while you are sleeping, so that when you wake up, more time.
Yeah. I think, Yash, we have answered a bunch of questions, man. This is great. Thank you so much, everyone who joined in. I think thank you so much, Yash, for helping me out on this one. Great amount of questions. Like, I think, Yash, you have to send like I don't know how many crores of Amazon vouchers now to the audience. You need to think this through. Should have thought this through now. I hope you have that budget. But thank you so much for. I think my internet is shaky. I think. Hey, is Yash's internet shaky, or I'm not sure. I think it's my internet. Not sure. Yash, can you hear me? Acha. Yash's internet. Yeah. Yes, we can hear you now. I think you're. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Was great spending some time with you folks. And thank you so much for joining on a Saturday afternoon. If you want to figure out what we do more at GrowthX and what is the tribe that you're doing, go to growthx.club and explore more on what we are trying to do. Thanks a lot.